rather than what the bribe concept that he tried to get people to use to rise up to remove Marx's enemies, i.e., by use of people like Lenin and Stalin and Mao and Kim Jong Il and Pol Pot to do genocides and make rational debate untenable. Those people will be selected in that kind of system, rather than the system that the people wanted. So they wanted bread, their legal rights, work, and that's one of the reasons the Social Democrats overthrew the Tsar with Russian nationalists and socialists and nationalists. If you look at books, particularly The Ragged Trousers Philanthropist, which will of course have some detractors, overtly makes the link between socialism and national self-determination and citizenship. Those are English ideas that come from the English Enlightenment, based on various Western rationalist ideas that come from Rome and the English struggle for freedom and equality and their rights to be asserted from the Norman yoke, which is another reason why the Americans were rebelling. They were rebelling because of their English heritage against the Norman yoke of the monarchy. Okay, so Ron Paul's model does not provide a total solution. The cooperative model, where all firms' shares, the total amount of shares that a firm produces, are owned by its workforce, i.e., so the managers, the people who are in like the kind of non-commissioned officer role, who are the link between the workforce in terms of like the horrible term human resources. I hate that term, but workforce services, it would be a better term. People who are working on machines or working in offices or doing the economic data, all those people own a share in that business. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100 shares. Could be just one share, and everyone has an equal amount of shares, and so their work, their efforts, their innovation are and the level of competence and responsibility for their actions within the firm are going to be rewarded by the share price and also by the amount of wages they get. So there's not going to be, the economy would move towards an equilibrium. Not necessarily would one cooperative be like, for instance, you have the cooperative bank or Waitrose. They're firms of different size, but all the profits in the cooperative model are reinvested in training the workforce, getting the workforce into good methods of production of goods or services. Okay, like for instance, the Japanese developed Kaizen, and the German army developed mission control, which the British and Israeli armies adopted. Both those ideas are based on that any one person is trained to do all the roles of every other person, whether those be management or a different part of the production line, whether that be the production of a good or a service, a car or a computer program. Yeah, and that all came from a military um, necessity. Yeah, uh, the same thing that the British use for if the officer is hit on the chopper when he gets off of in Afghanistan, that Tom can do his job, yeah, whether he be a private soldier or a non-commissioned officer, yeah, like a sergeant. Um, he can do the leader's job, and so it makes be people who, in terms of commercial activity, it makes striking to damage the whole thing very uncost effective for workers to do that, right? So that would be a negative thing if workers are being exploited in a firm, okay, by the owners of that firm. But in a cooperative, everyone is the owner because they have a share of that firm, and no one who does not work for the firm can have a share. So it makes sense for more and more innovation, more and more research and development, and more hard work uh, and investment in that job to be put in by the workers of all different roles. Because instead of having ranks and divisions and castes of workers, management, logistics, and um, factory floor workers, yeah, you are having roles assigned to you. There's obviously going to be some conflict if somebody is really good at a role or they're really happy with their friends in that role, and then the cooperative model, which is competing against other firms, um, wants you to move to another role, but it's more likely that you're going to accept and want to retrain in many different roles, both in vertically and horizontally. And of course, in a cooperative idea, you don't have vertical levels of the firm, so to speak. In a kind of social way, you have leaders who are chosen by their workers on the basis of their competence. And so, if workers are doing the workforce, sorry, is engaged in research and development and innovation and working hard and doing everything that they can to get a maximum share pricing, all their interests are reflected in the share price and their wages. And it also means that they have an incentive to help each other. If someone is flagging because they've got flu or they've got a rugby injury, or or a woman was hurt in basketball, or she's pregnant, or anything else, there's an incentive for everyone to help overcome that difficulty and not treat it as a problem. Okay. Well, and originally nations, and citizenship developed because of those incentives, and the thought of duty and obligations, which were much more similar to the same sort of conception in those days, when citizenship meant you were a farmer, a producer, as well as a soldier and a lawmaker and a receiver of law. So the cooperative model, where all firms' shares are owned by the workforce. In this example, the National Central Bank's shares performance as a cooperative would be reflected. So every citizen would own a share of the central bank.